Hello everyone, I'm Chantelle. I'm one of the members of Vast Remedy, and today I'm just doing this video just to talk about myself. I'm just kidding. But I just want to tell you a little bit about myself, my backstory, and basically, if you will, my testimony. I'm not going to go way back, but I'm going to just skip over a few things just to kind of get to the point. So basically, I grew up with an absent father, like most people can relate to that. But my father left, my mom and my dad split up when I was about 5 years old. And I just remember just being devastated. I just remember the day it happened. And for some reason, I always had the feeling like, was it my fault? And I know a lot of young people feel like that, and I'm just here to tell you that it's not your fault. But I just always had that feeling like, was I to blame? And just kind of feeling like, because I was told I was a daddy's girl. I don't quite remember exactly. But I just felt like, why would he leave me, you know? So I grew up with that feeling of abandonment. And just looking for love basically in all the wrong places, which I know a lot of people can relate to that too. Okay, so around the age of 8 years old is when we started Vast Remedy. And that took a lot of my time. So that really kept me really busy and just kind of going. You know, we had a lot of success with Vast Remedy. And it was a great time for me. We did it on to from about 8 to my early 20s. And at that time, you know, we had a lot of shows. We led a lot of people to Christ. But even as a young lady, I think I still had a feeling of unfulfillment. I still wanted the love of a father. So like many, I struggled with men. At the age of 17, I fell in love with, well, I thought I fell in love with my oldest son, Dad, and we ended up having a child. And what I learned out of that marriage was that a man really couldn't fulfill me. And I'm saying that because even growing up in the house, I had only sisters, and then I have my mom. But I never felt that love from any man, not even a brother. So I think the biggest life lesson I got out of that was that a man didn't fulfill me. But once I got that life lesson, it made me, after that marriage, we got married, and after that marriage ended around 21, that made me really realize, like, oh my gosh, like, I am really messed up. Like, I thought that would fulfill me, and it didn't. So I still had, I guess you could say, a big hole in my heart when it didn't. So throughout those years, I ended up doing a lot of crazy stuff. I ended up having 2 more children. And just throughout that time, I was partying, drinking, doing illegal stuff, things that could have got me jail time. Just really trying to find myself. So throughout all this time of trying to find myself, and when I say doing drugs, I wasn't a drug addict. I was functioning well, but I was just basically partying a lot and hanging out a lot. And throughout this time, maybe at around the age of 25, I ended up moving to Georgia, me and my children, and there things even escalated to a higher level of just bad behavior. And while I was there, I spent about 2 or 3 years there. And throughout all that time, because like I said, I knew God growing up. My mom kept us in the church. And throughout all that time, I mean, God still spoke to me. He was still a part of my life. And I spent maybe 2 or 3 years there before I started having the urge, like, okay, you need to move back to Florida to be closer to your family and to get closer to God. And then my sister Melody called me, and that was the confirmation. And she told me basically the same thing, you know, you need to move back, and the Lord was telling her that we needed to start the group. And sure enough, probably a few weeks later, I went ahead and gave into the Holy Spirit, and I moved back to Florida. And I think this was the epiphany in my life, was that night when I moved back, literally around 2 a.m., people start blowing up my phone. Just blowing up my phone. I was at home in Florida in the bed, and people was telling me a good friend of mine had died on a motorcycle. And at that time I said, I knew it was the Lord that kept me from that accident as well, because I used to hang out with this person. He was on the way to a club that we always went to, and I would have been with him. That's what we did on a Saturday night. And I knew the Lord kept me alive, and I knew he kept me alive for a reason, for such a time as this. And I just thank God for keeping me alive. So after that happened, I made a big turnaround in my life. I began to plug back into my church, plug back into God, read my word, study my word. And God just began to deliver me from a lot of those demons that I dealt with in my life, those demons of abandonment, being the black sheep, just all those issues I dealt with in my life. He really began to work with me and deliver me from those things. The things that I used to do, I didn't have the desire to do anymore. And I was reading in my Bible today, I was reading in chapters 23, Luke 23 and 24, and it's about the crucifixion of Jesus, and how he rose again in 24. And I can't help but think of the two guys who was on the cross with him, the one who was blaspheming Jesus, and then the other one who came to Jesus' defense, who said to the other guy, how could you not fear God? We're on this cross for our bad deeds, but this guy Jesus has done nothing. And he was telling Jesus to remember me. And that just makes me think, and Jesus told him, surely he'll remember him, and that he would live in paradise with him that day. And that just makes me think of Jesus. What a faithful, merciful God we serve, that you can do so much wrong, and then he'll turn around and still allow you to live in paradise with him, because these people were up on the cross because of their wrongs. They did do wrong. But God is just so merciful and forgiving that he allows you a second chance. Every day, I just thank God for my second chance.